summer in the city. Back of my neck getting dirt and gritty. Bend down, isn't it a pity? Doesn't seem to be a shadow in the city. All around, people looking half dead, walking on the sidewalk harder than a match head.
Welcome back. Daily Show, 9:34, a little bit of change. Talking with Matt Tomc, he's the Vice President of Regulatory Policy and Energy Supply with Ameren. How are you doing today?
Great. Good morning. Glad to be here.
Well, and honestly, glad to have you here, especially, too, we were just talking with Brian a couple of days ago on the show, and just how, you know, right now, especially because it's been so darn hot lately, and we got a couple of days of reprieve until it's hot again, but our air conditioners are running, and with that comes the billing and everything else, and honestly, to understand our bill a little bit more and see, you know, really where the price comes in is going to be really good to know about today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity to be on, talk to your audience about kind of what we're seeing. And I think it's really started for us a couple months back. There is a grid operator, and that grid operator is called the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator. That's a mouthful. We call them MISO, but you know, they had done, they manage our energy markets. They did what was called a capacity auction. So they were trying to get electric generators, you know, to be ready to be available for the summer. And they went ahead and they did their auction. And for the summer period, we saw the prices come in at $666 a megawatt day.
Wow.
Now that compares to what it used to be.
That's what I was going to add.
$30 a megawatt.
No kidding. See, that's astronomical.
So energy supply, when you think about your electric bill, you're going to get your delivery service charges, and that's Ameren. We run the wires, we keep them up, we deliver that electricity to you. And then there's the supply, the actual commodity of electricity. And that price I was talking about that MISO cleared at $666, that impacts that supply price significantly. So we recognize that for the summer period, we were going to see a 50% increase in the electric supply charges. Now, silver lining, they go back to normal after September, but that is a huge jump. And then when you combine that with the heat wave that we experienced, we're getting some customers with some pretty significant and severe bill impacts.
Right.
And so that's, you know, obviously a significant area of concern.
Well, and especially too, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, the fall and it's coming around the corner, and yes, September will be here. Hopefully it's a cooler September than what it has been in years past. But for some families, you know, it's hard to catch up in those fall and winter months when their summer bills are that high. And it's good to know a little bit more about maybe why, you know, that is the case, because when you go from $30 to $630+ for anything, I mean, that's not 100%. Those are thousands of percentage points that are of an increase.
That's right. And I think first and foremost, for the customers out there listening to these high prices are going to persist through September. This is a summer period. And so I would say, you know, first and foremost, anything you can do to conserve the use of electricity during these high market price times is going to be helpful. It also helps your other customers because you're decreasing that demand and that pull on the system a little bit. But yeah, certainly I think people want to understand what's going on. Why is this happening?
Well, and that's really what my question is why do you see, because I get the supply and demand thing. I totally understand that. But whenever you get to the summertime, it almost seems not, you don't want to say, you know, wrong, but it just seems a little weird that, I mean, 100% totally, 500% maybe. But when you're talking a jump from 30 to 600, that's almost where you have to wave a hand at and go, why is it that expensive? Do you have any explanation for that or any thoughts to it?
Yes, absolutely. And we've been looking at this very closely, and we're looking at it not only to understand it, but to try to help chart a solution.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to see this become a reoccurring event. We want the trend to turn around, but it is supply and demand. We across the country, we're seeing electric demand increase. And some big drivers of that are the development of large data centers.
Got like AI data centers and all that?
Yeah, some of these can be 500, 1,000 megawatts. I mean, these are facilities that draw multiples of the type of power that like a factory would draw. I mean, these are electric intensive applications. Yeah. We are also seeing onshoring of manufacturing in the United States. That's certainly a good thing. We want to see our economy do better, but for our electric customers and our electric markets, you're seeing an increase in demand. And at the same time, we're not seeing supply keep up.
Gotcha.
We have a lot of older fossil fuel generators, gas, coal, especially downstate Illinois, that are in the process of closing or will be closing soon. There's a lot of new generation coming online, mainly in the form of renewables. But there's this gap, there's this tightness between the supply and demand, and that's what you're seeing reflected in those high market prices.
It makes sense. And, with that too, whenever we look at our bill and it says, 8 cents per kilowatt hour or, 12 cents, because I'm pretty sure that's what it went up to during the summer months. What does that necessarily mean for some? How can we break that down for someone to understand truly what that, 0.12 cents a kilowatt, 0.12 cents a kilowatt hour, or 0.12 cents, what that actually means? Because, we see it when we go to Home Depot and it says, the annual yearly, savings or your annual, energy cost usage is going to be like 164 for this portable AC. But what does that really mean whenever we see, that 12 cents a kilowatt hour? What's that power in that 12 cents? What's that get us? And how can we break that down to make it easier to understand and maybe help be more efficient in our own billing?
Yeah, I think first, if you look at your Ameren bill, like all Illinois utility bills, it's pretty busy.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Right. There's a lot of line item charges on there. And just to kind of break that down for folks, I think first it's a reflection of the policy of the state to show every single component of what goes into your pricing. So it's kind of annoying because it's confusing, a lot of acronyms, but you are getting insight into what's driving that bill. And I think if you look at that bill, you're going to find 3 categories, really. You're going to find our charges, which are for the wires, for the transmission lines,
Gotcha.
substations, the billing folks that are working to answer customer questions, those type of delivery service functions there. Then you're going to see that electric commodity price. And that'll be either the commodity price that we procure with the Illinois Power Agency for customers that haven't chosen a third-party supplier. Some people will have a third-party supplier, namely those customers in a community that have contracted with a company like Constellation. Or
like an energy aggregation program or something like that.
Correct.
Gotcha.
So that energy supply piece. And then you'll also see there's a miscellaneous charges, fees that have come onto the bill. A lot of things in recent years you'll see they're oriented towards low-income programs or renewable energy programs. That makes up a big portion of the bill. Right now, what's driving driving the increase is that electric commodity supply price because of those markets.
Well, and see, this is where I get so confused, I think, and a lot of maybe your customers do it, or not even Ameren customers, but just from the aggregation program. Whenever we're looking at that, I think that's where I kind of wave my hand and go, I have no idea, because, obviously from what you see online and just from people I see, it's like, man, there was a lot of people very happy with the rates that Ameren had for a long time because they were just doing better than it seemed like the folks were doing in the aggregation program. But then the summer months, I don't know where that split is, or even if it's worth, opting out or staying in, because of just the way it just, the language doesn't seem to be too clear. It just always seems like, well, is this even that good of a deal in the end of it?
It's very difficult, I think, to compare electric prices for most customers. I mean, it's hard for us to break down.
Yeah.
You're comparing apples to oranges.
That makes sense.
You really are. And what goes into that price? What's the term of it? How long is it going to be? But one of the things I would say to everybody is it's worth it to look around and to compare those offers. And if you have any questions, call our number. We'll tell you what our power supply prices are. We do have a price to compare. So we'll try to show what exactly that price is that you're comparing to your offer. So take care in looking at those offers. Some do offer the potential to save some money. But just like anything else, when you go out and you contract for a commodity price, there are going to be contracts where people come out ahead, and those where they could have done a different option and saved money. It's just hard to tell when you're sort of looking forward.
That makes sense, and it's also good to know just really that 2 different components or the 3 of the utility bill every month, and really where your guys' price points come in and where your charges come in. And do you think really? I hate to put you in this corner, but it seems like it's unfair in a way, because we're going, man, Ameren's just the reason these bills are so high. But, in the same light, you guys are the supplier for it. So it's one of those things where for you guys, is it getting out and just making sure people are educated on, hey, here's where the money's coming in, here's where you're seeing this increase, and making sure they're aware of it?
Absolutely. I think it's we have to be accountable to our customers. And I will tell you, I am very concerned about what I'm seeing in these power supply prices and the impacts that these are having on our customers. Certainly residential customers, we all recognize we get these bills, we get these impacts. Also concerned about our small businesses, our school districts. These are pretty high prices, and my team and I have been looking very closely at this. We work with that organization, MISO. We are also actively working with federal and state policymakers, trying to inform them to make some course corrections, some changes that will help to bring these prices down over time.
Well, and see, that's what I was going to ask you. It almost seems like you have to have, I hate to say it, but the government step in a way and combat this and say there's no way that there's got to be a cap somewhere, some type of rubric to follow, because it seems like, just from what you said, it's like the Wild West. If you can go from 30 to 640, there doesn't seem to be really any correlation to that. And what I was going to ask you is, I saw also that the billing is going to be, you guys are expecting around 18 to 22% increase in summer bills compared to last year at this time.
That was our initial estimate, right? Was 18 to 22% increase comparing summer to summer.
Yeah.
Not the spring period to the summer period, but the summer to summer. Now, what we're actually seeing, I think most customers are experiencing higher impacts than that. Due to the weather, because
of how hot,
AC units are cranking.
Well, and see, that's something too where I don't want the people that watch the show to go, CJ, you kind of sound like a jerk today, but at the same time, we have to take care of our own houses too, and we know our units, and we know, if our air conditioner's been running for 14 days, there's a reason your bill's $1,000. And when it's 95 degrees outside, or it's 95 plus 98% humidity, and it feels like 115. Is there a sweet spot that you guys kind of recommend that still feels comfortable for folks and, can maybe help, take the workload off of their units and make sure and almost hopefully bring down their bill a little bit too?
Well, anything that you can do to conserve usage is going to help you. And the little things add up. With respect to air conditioning, it's hard to give a recommendation because it really depends on the customer situation.
That makes sense.
If you have a health condition or some other vulnerability that requires really a consistent, comfortable temperature, you need to stick with that, certainly. Other folks may be able to squeeze out some savings by simply, letting that thermostat rise a little bit. But I would say even things like if you're going to be going out, you're going to leave town for a couple days, definitely change that thermostat. It's going to definitely save you some money. Other things that you can do is, everything adds up. If you're not in a room, turning the lights off, looking at what kind of devices you leave plugged in your house too can draw a lot of power. Looking at what's happening with the sun. Are you closing windows, blinds and such to try to prevent that heating of your home? Anything you can do. Now, I want to say I significantly, I understand the significance these bill impacts on people.
Oh, yeah.
And certainly it's hot in the Midwest. We want to be comfortable, and everybody, in my opinion, deserves to have an affordable energy bill to their house. So we are working to try to figure that out. And I will say that, yes, to answer your question, I do think policymakers need to start to think about, how do I chart a solution here? What kind of resources do we need to bring online so that the supply of energy is keeping up with demand? Because what we're seeing right now is just not sustainable for our customers.
Well, and you have a good point, especially for those mom and pop businesses that I'm sure make up quite a substantial amount of your commercial clients, especially around the Metro East and around the RiverBend region. Is, you have a 1,500 square foot, venue, whether or not it's a restaurant or you name it. And man, I couldn't imagine, especially if you're just trying to stay afloat. So you're right. I mean, to really think about those people as well, and to bring that up is a good notion. But when it comes down to this, October 1st is when we will hopefully should see those rates go back down to where they should have been, or where they were, around 8 to 9 cents, correct? So relief's kind of, on the way in somewhat of a sense, right?
Yes, that's correct. And in fact, that's where the southern part of the state differs from the northern part.
Really?
Chicago area is experiencing higher electric bills too. Their market's a little bit different. They have a full year. They don't have the seasonality that
Really? That's fascinating. Why? Is there a reason that we have the seasonality and they don't?
They're in a different market area.
That's interesting.
Theirs is called PJM. It's another initials, and they have a different electric market. But they're experiencing the same type of pressure from the data centers coming on, that increased demand. So this is an entire state of Illinois issue. So I do think there is motivation on behalf of legislators and policymakers to do something about this, because it is impacting basically everybody in the state of Illinois, from residential customers across the state to our large businesses.
It's very true. And now when it comes to the nuts and bolts of it, you guys do not control supply rates, right?
That's correct. So in Illinois, we're what we call a deregulated state. Mm-hmm. And what that means is the utility companies like Ameren, we don't own the large power plants.
It makes sense. Okay. Well, and now, so where does, just to kind of clarify that or simplify it a little bit more, what's the best way to describe Ameren's role in conjunction to the big supplier, the big, factory type of situation? From Ameren to the supplier, what's the difference, or what can we kind of think of Ameren as compared to that other part of the bill?
So Ameren is the delivery services company. So our job is to deliver those electrons to your house, irrespective of who you choose or how you choose to generate those. Some folks take advantage of solar. There's great solar programs that can really cut your bill. Mm-hmm. So there's those out there, and then other people will choose a supplier, a third-party supplier, to try to gain control over their bill, maybe lock in a contract price for 2 years.
Okay.
We're indifferent to that. Our job is to deliver it to you, and we also work for most of our customers. They're going to take service, what we call default service, and the Illinois government is very closely, as they regulate that through an agency called the Illinois Power Agency, and so they'll go out and they'll conduct these procurements. We will help instruct them, like, here's what here's what we're seeing in those markets. Here's some contract terms. They make the final decision. They conduct the procurements, and then my team signs the contracts for those power supply, and those get reflected without markup on customer bills.
That's very fascinating. Well, and the bottom line to me is, it doesn't seem like for right now it's preventable, because it's just something that you guys have to experience and combat and deal with, each and every year, just like we do, until some type of change is enacted. And before we go into what it'll take to keep rates lower, is there anything that you guys have thought of from a company side? Because I know you have your budget billing and different options for folks that really don't want to take a gamble on what July could bring if we can keep everything around the same or averaged out until the year's end. What are some of those programs or different opportunities for folks that they can take part of to maybe help combat some of those bills as well?
So first and foremost, if you are having trouble with your bill, we want to hear from you.
Yeah,
absolutely. We do have arrearage reduction programs in place. Many of those are budget limited, but do reach out, contact.
Makes sense.
We want to work with you, want to hear from you. There's budget billing, there's other programs. I will also say, if you haven't done so already, Illinois utilities like Ameren, we have very robust energy efficiency programs. So we work with contractors, with customers. You're installing that higher efficiency air conditioner, windows installation. We have dollars available to help customers and contractors to bring those prices down, to put those types of improvements in homes. Those are significant in terms of reducing customer energy
1,000%. Yeah.
This year, next year, and years to come. And then finally, we do have solar rebate programs available in the state of Illinois. Not for everybody, but those can also be powerful tools in, solar can be a powerful tool in controlling energy costs and exposure to energy costs.
Well, and it's good too for the folks to know that there are ways that you guys can help with putting in some of those, high efficiency windows, or, some of those different opportunities that, I didn't even realize that you guys took part of. And that could be one of those things you don't do now, but you go, okay, let's save up a little bit and let's take part in this. So that way next summer we can help cut this bill down even further, With that being said, there's different ways of, different forms of generating, electricity and energy now, with windmills and renewable energy and solar panels and, from nuclear and natural gas. Is there just more resources? I mean, is it one of those things we just need to have a variety of them, in your opinion? Or is it one of those where we need to invest heavier into the grid, into what we already have for our infrastructure, so we can take on the workload of not only the AI database centers, but also these new factories that are coming in, like you said, and these new builds?
That is a great question. And I will definitely say that I support a portfolio-based approach to energy generating resources. And I think this is a question too that I think your listeners should pay close attention to, and something that we want to hear from you on this. And I think state legislators want to hear what's the direction that people want to go. I will say, from Ameren's standpoint, first and foremost, we want people to have reliable and safe sources of electricity. We also want folks to have affordable electricity.
Yeah.
We do have at Ameren a net zero goal for carbon by 2045, which closely corresponds to the state's goal. So we do support, renewable energy and integration of renewables. When I talk to policymakers, to regulators, one thing that I often say is affordability is critical path to achieving our goals in clean energy and resource adequacy and reliability. It's critically important that as we go forward, that customers have affordable sources of energy. So as we chart our course, we need to always think, what's that combination of resources that allows us to continue to make progress on clean energy, but doesn't bankrupt customers?
Right.
And so what we also have been advocating for is, look, the deregulated design, this concept that as market prices go up, sellers come in, generators come in, they'll take advantage of those prices, and over time, with those new generators come in, prices will come down. Frankly, we're growing concerned we're not seeing the type of responsiveness of new generators coming in. So what my suggestion is, have a comprehensive energy plan that charts what kind of resources, when we need, and what level, and begin to look at that. And I think regulators and state policymakers should closely look at policies like that, maybe enacting something into state law that allows us to chart our course to both achieve our renewable energy goals, but also keep rates affordable for customers.
Well, 100%. And it's fascinating to me, though, that there hasn't been a type of plan like that yet introduced. And do you think it's just because of the fact that there's been so many different nuances to not only technology and energy manufacturing, but is it just the way the world is, or just the way the political system is, that it was just never thought of and we didn't need it at that time, and here we are now? What are your thoughts just to that, and why we haven't had one so far?
I think that the thought process was always let markets respond, right? Let markets do what they do. There's high prices. People will come in, more sellers, more innovators. They'll come up with new ways to do things. But what we've seen with power markets is to build like a gas power plant or a big wind farm. That's hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of capital to commit. And we've actually seen the price spike and then drop down, spike and drop down. So it seems as though it's hard for some of these investors to come in and make these expenditures to build these. We're just seeing this sort of this drag in terms of these new resources coming online. So we need to kind of figure out, what's the story there? How do we solve for that? What kind of reforms do we need to make? What kind of incentives can we offer for generators to come into the market other than just high prices? How do we bring stability to our electric prices? These are complicated issues, but they're issues that have to be resolved. And in fact, there's a bill pending right now, the General Assembly, SB 40, and right now I think it's 900 pages.
Read that one under night.
See some really constructive things in there. I see some things that probably need some improvement too. From my perspective, we try to always offer unbiased perspective as an energy company, to say, here's what we see in power markets. Here are some things that we see could work. But at the end of the day, I do think action is needed to address this. And it's the federal level too. There's a lot of things going on there with federal regulators looking at how do we get more generation online sooner to meet demand, bring prices down.
Absolutely. Well, Matt, it was seriously fantastic to talk to you and just to learn a little bit more about this. And for folks that just kind of were a little bit kind of, maybe just concerned, I think is the best way is to know that you guys are strictly the deliverer of the electricity, and you aren't the ones that are going from $30 to $635, overnight for all of you guys to counter and to combat with. It's very fascinating. Any final thoughts before I say so long for now?
Hey, I just appreciate the opportunity to talk to folks this morning about this. So thank you for having me on. And again, if there's anything that Ameren, Illinois can do to help, and our customers are experiencing these high bills, give us a call, and please do look into our energy efficiency programs. You can Google Ameren, Illinois energy efficiency, and you'll get a whole host of information at your fingertips.
Really cool. Well, thank you so much for stopping by. It was a great conversation, and really appreciate your insights.
Yeah,
we'll take a quick break. 9:58. We'll come back with Minnie Corral and Rob Linhart right after this.